Alright guys, welcome back to another video. Today we're here to talk about the Scotland squad that was announced today by Stevie Clarke for the World Cup qualifiers against Denmark, Moldova and Austria. Now that is not the only thing we're here to talk about, we're also here to talk about the new contract that Stevie Clarke has signed. So he will stay for an extra year. How do I feel about that? To be fair, I mean, I've no complaints. I was a big fan of Stevie Clarke when he was awarded the job. I wouldn't say he's underperformed, but I definitely think there is room for improvement. I am confident that improvement will come because I think the team's getting better and better. I do think the Scotland squad is a lot better now. I think it's better than the squad he inherited, and I believe that, you know, the players that we've got, I think we've got a lot of core young players that are coming through, so I do expect them to improve. I do expect them to get better. And I expect us to get better and stronger because of that. But yeah, we're not going to waste a shitload of time talking about this. We'll get stuck into the goalkeepers. So, John McLaughlin apparently has injury issues. He's out. And Davy Marshall, who is now third choice goalkeeper at his club, he is out. So that leaves Craig Gordon and the two goalkeepers coming in, Liam Kelly of Motherwell and big fucking Zander Clarke of St Johnstone, the guy that pumped Rangers out the cup last season. Hopefully he can do a bit of a pump into Denmark, Moldova and Austria. That's if he starts, because I think with Clarke and Gordon, to me, I can't really pick between who should start. Obviously Craig Gordon is his whole career's rejuvenated at the moment. He's at heart, so he's playing well. He's pulling off amazing saves. Some of those saves against Celtic, you know, were quality. And then you've got Zander Clarke for the past couple of years. Has, you know, probably been one of the most consistent keepers in Scotland, and he shows up in big games. There's no doubt about that. He might not have the experience that Craig Gordon's got. He's not got an international cap, but the only way to get experience is to get given a chance. So I mean, sooner or later, we need to start playing Clarke because he is the future. He's going to be Scotland's number one in a few years' time. It's just like I said. I mean, Davy Marshall, I think his Scotland career's over. I mean, Craig Gordon, I think arguably is number one at the moment. But I mean, how much time does he have left in the tank? Not a lot. So, to be honest, I wouldn't mind who he picks. I think if he went with Craig Gordon, you couldn't complain, and if he goes with Zander Clarke, I don't think you could complain either. There's 3 games, maybe one of them will get 2 and one of them will get the other one. I think Liam Kelly's just there to make up the numbers, but definitely looking forward to seeing somebody in the nets rather than Davy Marshall, who in my opinion always looked a bit dodgy when he was playing for us. Right, moving on to the defenders. We've got Leeds' Liam Cooper, Aberdeen's Declan Gallagher, Grant Hanley for Norwich, who just, you know, like I said, had Harry Kane in his back pocket. It's probably, I mean, Harry Kane hasn't even turned up at Tottenham. He's still probably in Grant Hanley's back pocket, to be fair. Need to wash his jeans and fucking find them. You got Jack Hendry, Scott McKenna, Stephen O'Donnell, best right back in the world in my opinion. Say nobody ever. And Nathan Patterson, Rangers' Nathan Patterson. And also, I've just missed out 3 defenders. Andy Robertson, who it's debatable whether he is fully fit. I'm not too sure if he will be ready, but he's been announced anyway. Greg Taylor and Arsenal's Kieran Tierney. First off, I want to say Kieran Tierney has looked pretty bad defensively in the last couple of games for Arsenal. Hopefully he sorts that shite out before he plays for Scotland. I mean, it's not really... He's picked all the defenders you'd expect him to pick here. He's pretty much picked, I think, the same fucking defenders he picked for the Euros. I don't think he's made a single change here. Now, I did see on Twitter a few Celtic fans saying that Ralston should be in over Nathan Patterson, which is interesting considering about a month ago they were all saying Ralston's shite, but a couple of goals later now apparently he should be in the Scotland squad. How can you go from being absolute shite to you should be getting in the Scotland squad? Now, we could argue Scotland are shite as well, but I don't know, it just doesn't sit right with me. I've no problem with them sticking with Nathan Patterson, although the fact that Nathan Patterson barely gets a game for Rangers, I do think it's a bit of a concern. I think going forward, obviously it depends on the formation that he plays. If he's playing 5 at the back, then for me it has to be Robertson, Tierney, Grant Hanley. I don't think, probably Liam Cooper, because I think I don't think Declan Gallagher's had a good start to the season with Aberdeen. And I would go with Stephen O'Donnell at right back. That's just my opinion. If you don't like it, then it is what it is. But I just don't see why Greg Taylor's in this team. I really don't. If we need another left back, then, I mean, there is other options. What about Josh Doidge, who's, always looking good? Get him in. Why not? What about Aaron Hickey? I don't know. It's not like Greg Taylor's going to be starting. So it's not like any of them would be starting if they replaced them, but at least bring them in and get a bit of experience. I mean, Greg Taylor, he's never going to be in a situation where he's going to be the Scotland number one, right? Like with Josh Doidge and Aaron Hickey, we don't know how good those guys are going to get. Plus, they're young. By the time Tierney and Robertson are retiring, those guys are still going to be in their mid-20s to late 20s. I mean, Greg Taylor's not that much younger than Robertson, and I think he's actually a year older than Tierney. So he's just never going to be Scotland number one unless Robertson and Tierney break their legs at the same time, and if that happens, we're fucked. But I just don't think Greg Taylor should be there. I would personally get rid of him. But it is what it is. Moving into the midfield here, we've got Stuart Armstrong, who should never have been picked again. Absolutely atrocious, man. We played when we played England a couple of years ago. He screwed us, right? Lee Griffiths. He might be a cunt and he might be, a pedo and all this shit, but when he bangs in goals for Scotland, everything's alright in the world, right? Lee Griffiths handed us a win against England on a plate, and this guy just gave it away, just had options on the counter-attack, and he's like, no, here, I'll give it away so you can whip a cross in so Harry fucking bloody retard Kane can, score the goal. 2-2 there. The game against England this time in the Euros, there's a big scramble in our box, in the last minute. And this guy has a chance to clear it, and he's fucking trying to play out for the 6-yard box, and that almost cost us a goal there, so he could have threw away the game against England so easily. And then that match against Croatia, he was absolute shite. What an embarrassment, man. What an absolute embarrassment. Should have been taken off after 20 minutes. Fuck knows how he started. I mean, really. I seem to think we're good, but if Stuart Armstrong is good enough to start in our midfield, then we must suck, right? We must fucking suck. This guy should never play for us again. We've also got Lewis Ferguson, who I am actually happy to see get a call-up. I think it's fairly deserved. He's played for the under-19s and 21s before, but this is his first senior call-up. We've got on loan from Chelsea, now Norwich midfielder Billy Gilmore. We've got John McGinn, Callum McGregor, who seems to be playing a hell of a lot better this year than he was last year. Kenny McLean, David Turnbull. So that is the midfield. If we're going free in midfield, for me, it has to be McGinn, Gilmore. Well, not Armstrong. That is fucking for sure. McGinn, Gilmore, and I can probably McGregor. McGinn, Gilmore, McGregor. I don't think Lewis Ferguson's ready to be starting. I mean, David Turnbull's alright. Again, I just don't think he's ready to be starting. But definitely good players you can bring off the bench. So that's the three I would go with. McGinn, Gilmore, McGregor. It is what it is. But what I like about Lewis Ferguson is the guy can pretty much play as an attacking midfielder or a defensive midfielder. So he's got that in his locker, so that definitely helps. And as for the attacking players that were named, you've got Shea Adams, Ryan Christie, Lyndon Dykes, James Forrest, Ryan Fraser, and Kevin Nisbet. So that is the 6 attacking players. No room for Lauren Shankland, who's obviously left the Scottish Premiership, left Dundee United to try and go and get more game time or try and get back into the Scotland team, I guess. Obviously, he wasn't really impressed at Dundee United, so he thinks a move to Belgium is going to help him. I personally don't see it that way, but here, it is what it is. As for the strikers, it's probably the weakest position we've got, but you know what? I want to see Kevin Nisbet play up front with Lyndon Dykes. I think Lyndon Dykes does a great job holding the ball up, and Kevin Nisbet is, scoring goals for... I'm not going to say scoring goals for fun, but out of all these strikers, he is the guy, out of these 6 attacking players that were picked, he is the guy I'd expect to, if he had 10 attempts, he's the one I'd expect to bury more than anyone else. I mean, Shea Adams, I don't think was horrible, But let's be real, guys, he didn't score. I mean, that's what he was there to do. He's supposed to be a good finisher. He's supposed to be the guy that, put the ball in the back of the net. And he didn't. He didn't do it at the Euros. So he's had his chance. I would like to see Kevin Nisbet start up with Lyndon Dykes. That is if we're playing the 5-3-2, which I expect Steve Clarke. Well, I mean, he could switch the formation up depending on our opponents. But if we're going with the 5-3-2, I want to see Kevin Nisbet and Lyndon Dykes up front. Like I said, my midfield would be Gilmore, McGinn, and McGregor. The back five, if fit, Andy Robertson, Tierney, Hanley, Cooper, and Stevie O'Donnell. And then in nets, you know what? As much as I think Craig Gordon's playing great at the moment, I want to see Zander Clarke in a Scotland team. I want to see it. So I would go with Zander Clarke, even though I do think Craig Gordon is technically the Scotland number one. I would say he's probably the number one keeper at the moment, but I want to see Zander Clarke get a game, guys. So that is what I would do. That is the squad. Happy enough with it. I mean, apart from Stuart Armstrong, Greg Taylor as well. It's a bit of a dodgy call. I mean, Greg Taylor shouldn't have been there either, if we're being honest. Apart from that, though, I don't think you can have too much complaints. Greg Taylor out, Stuart Armstrong out, but apart from that, I don't think there's that much wrong with it. And we'll see how we go on then, guys, against these teams. Anyway, that is it for your Scotland squad announcement for these World Cup qualifiers. Denmark, Austria, and Moldova. To me, we need to be looking... I want at least 6 points, man. At least 6 points. We need to beat Moldova regardless. And then, who knows, maybe 5 points, maybe a draw against Austria and a draw against Denmark. We just can't really afford to lose to Austria, but we need to beat Moldova. I mean, most teams will probably lose to Denmark. If we lose to Denmark, then I'd say at absolute minimum 4 points. And that's as low as I'm going to go, guys. 4 points at an absolute minimum. But that would be the worst case possible scenario. I don't want 4, but if we get 4, I'm not going to cry. Well, I might cry a wee bit, but I'm not going to cry that much. Anyway, guys, that is it. That's the squad announcement. Let me know down below what you thought of this 23-man squad, and do you agree, disagree? Do you think Stevie Clarke is done alright here? Do you think he's made good selections, or do you think he deserves to be shot? Do you think he's picked the wrong players? Because, I mean, I think picking Stuart Armstrong at this stage is probably a shootable offence. But anyway, that's it, guys. Till next time, peace.